All right, everyone. There's an energy rising right now that I don't think that I've felt since 2016. It was semi-absent in 2020, and that's MAGA energy. You saw this in Butler the other day with Elon Musk and Vance and all the others gathered around Trump. There's an energy right now that I think is on parity with the 2016 election at some of its better moments. Memes and all, by the way. You may not have as much Pepe the Frog, but you've got plenty of other stuff. You know, fight, 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 and all of these other things. Elon Musk jumping up in the air on stage. Yeah, that's a little bit on the mimetic side. If I had to guess, I'd say if the election were held today, Trump would win. And it wouldn't be particularly close. In fact, I think that the gap with the popular vote is likely to be far smaller than possibly even it was in 2016. And that's partially because of the efforts of a few activists, people like Scott Presler, who gave a very, very good speech, by the way, albeit too short, actually. They should have let him speak longer. They need to give him some sort of official role at the RNC. He should be director of outreach or something like that, because quite clearly, here's a dude with good ideas. They're working. He's been picking away at Pennsylvania for months. It looks like it has paid off. If Trump gets Pennsylvania, he should give the Medal of Honor to Scott Presler if he manages to win Pennsylvania. And I suspect that he will, actually, based on new polling. There's less than a month left until the election. By the way, please go register to vote. Again, in the last video that I uploaded, link in the description, you can visit Scott Presler's site. He can give you better information on registering people and harvesting ballots than I can. He's done a very good job. If you look at the situation politically right now, Kamala's making like a last gasp attempt to go on podcasts and talk shows. It's like 60 minutes. Okay, so the Boomer Show. There's people in their 70s watch that. Stern, relevant back in the 90s and 2000s. It's not the 90s or the 2000s anymore, as Kamala Harris would put it. The Pussy Podcast and things like that. Spank Me and Call Me Daddy or whatever the fuck it's called. Okay, so young females watch that a lot. It's the most popular among young females. Don't you think that that vote is already pretty much sewn up by Kamala Harris? Id poll voters, younger females? I think that it is. I don't think that it appeals to any other particular voting bloc, so I don't know exactly how much it's worth. And a few of these others, like a Colbert. Yeah, again, you know, when I was in college, yeah, really, really funny comedy. Lashed out at politics on all sides. Was clearly a liberal, but at the same time was willing to castigate liberals. Now he's devolved away into TDS land, and that's basically his only so-called comedic foil. There's an energy, though, on the Trump side that I haven't felt since 2016, which is a breath of fresh air. It's very refreshing. I think that it's a good thing for the country. I will be voting for Donald Trump. I think that probably people, you know, understand that by now. And the reason is because I don't want to die in World War III or see the economy collapse. See, I'm very pragmatic about these things. It has nothing to do with ideological politics or anything like that, or owning the libs. It has to do with, hey, this affects my life on a day-to-day basis. The amount of taxes I pay, the regulations that I burden under, whether I'm getting vaporized by an atomic weapon. Those things are roughly meaningful for me. And I think that people are starting to wise up to that. I'm seeing more and more ire directed towards Kamala, especially in the wake of one glaring thing that happened in the last 48 hours, which was her statement with regards to Lebanon. North Carolina has been battered to pieces. FEMA's response has been anemic at best, to the point where they have to call you a conspiracy theorist if you say that the response is anything other than absolutely glorious. Meanwhile, she's sitting there rambling about giving hundreds of millions of dollars to foreign nations, and getting them to bomb one another, and then giving them pennies on the dollar in humanitarian aid. That's not a good look. Ignoring your own country, well, you're VP, by the way, you're actually in office. Ignoring your own country's plight in order to fixate on what conspiracy theorists, by the way, here's money for Lebanon, to give them food, to give them water. I bet that FEMA wouldn't have any problem with privately run helicopters or something airdropping aid into southern Lebanon. I doubt that they would give a shit about that. And on the Trump side, meanwhile, you've got Elon Ju doing jumping jacks on stage, and you've got Scott Presler and Trump giving really good speeches. I mean, he's been much better. This is one thing I've got to compliment Trump on. In 2016 and in 2020, to an extent, he tended to go off the rails, both at rallies and in debates and things like that. He has been much more demure, much more measured, and much more linear in his thinking and speech patterns than he was before. This is giving him an advantage, I think. It's like a more tempered Trump. It's still an energetic Trump. It's still an interesting Trump. It's still a Trump that you listen to because he might say something zany, and typically does during any given appearance. But it's a more measured zaniness. It's like his one-liners are more thought out. It's more like the Gipper or something like that. You know, Reagan was known for doing the one-liners and the little jokes and stuff like that. Trump has fallen sort of into that corridor, I think, speech-wise. Kamala Harris, meanwhile, fails to generate much in the way of interest because she can't answer basic questions. So if you're a high-info voter, she can't answer your questions about, like, what do you feel about this, taxes, the border, whatever. I mean, she's borders are, take it or leave it. She can't answer basic questions. If you're a lower info voter and you're more for the entertainment and want somebody who's just coherent, you know, they're capable of speaking, you're not going to get it with Kamala Harris. You'll get it with Donald Trump. You'll certainly get it with Vance. To an extent, sometimes you'll get it with Tim Walz, but you won't get it with Kamala Harris. You just won't. The MAGA energy is definitely rising at a fairly rapid pace as we approach the end goal here, as we get near the end of the race, less than a month away. I'm seeing much more enthusiasm among Trump voters. And by the way, I have to keep tabs as a political analyst. I have to look at not just the right-wing echo chamber sort of side of things like Twitter, YouTube, etc. I also have to go off into liberal la-la land and see sort of, you know, where's the enthusiasm, what are they talking about, etc., in order to draw a true analysis. I'm seeing much less enthusiasm among people on the left, especially the actual left. So not just like lay Democrats, like, hey, Grandpappy was a Dem, so I'm a Dem too, but people who are left-wing in their overall broad ideology. So they're more like an AOC or a Bernie Sanders. They're not really fans of Kamala Harris. They'll hold their nose and vote for her. I mean, they're not going to defect to Trump. But some of them will sit it out. Some of them will be so unenthused, they're like, well, I can't vote for Trump, but, you know, it's a rainy day, you know, I'm a little sick, I'm under the weather, I'll just watch it on TV. I have a feeling that that's sort of the dynamic that we're seeing right now. On the Trump side, though, I'm seeing people that are massively fired up, in part because they're afraid of Kamala, in part because they like Trump's ideology. Like, Trump knocked it out of the park with his very first Agenda 45 video for me as a content creator, because he's like, well, we're going to reform Section 230, have an Internet Bill of Rights. He sounded just like me on one of my videos on the subject. It was basically a 10 out of 10 for me. And so that enthused me. It makes me excited to vote for Trump. Yes, I believe that Trump is a good candidate. I'm not voting against Kamala, I'm voting for Donald Trump. There will also be people who are simply voting against her to stop World War III. But I think that there's much more, it's like a 2-to-1 energetically for Donald Trump right now. I believe he is very likely to win the election. That's about all. Peace out.